Welcome to the world of scale modeling with Mike Ashe, where techniques, tips, and creativity come alive with dozens of tutorials, projects, tape-up reviews, and picture references to help you build better scale models and enjoy our wonderful hobby. Welcome to part 4 of our 4-part series on building and detailing the Trumpeter 1 to 3/50th scale USS North Carolina. In this last part, we'll concentrate on airbrushing and final assembly. To set the waterline, lightly sand off some of the primer and be sure to remove all the paint dust from the surface. The red and gray plastic demarcation line is where the masking tape will be placed so that the hull red color can be airbrushed. Masking tape with a clean cut edge was placed along the demarcation line, and then the upper area of the hull was masked. The blood red color was achieved by mixing flat red with some flat black. The blood red color will contrast nicely with the navy blue color for the upper hull. The lower hull was then masked and the navy blue color was airbrushed onto the upper hull. The navy blue color was achieved by adding some intermediate blue to a dark sea blue color to slightly lighten up the dark sea blue color. The model was set on its work platform, and then more masking tape was applied to the upper hull to protect it from overspray and paint dust. Several light coats of deck blue were airbrushed onto all the horizontal deck surfaces. The deck blue color was achieved by mixing additional amounts of intermediate blue to the navy blue color to further lighten it up. All the masking tape was removed to check the painting progress and ensure that there was no paint bleeding between the hull red, navy blue, and deck blue colors. The most tedious part of painting a ship model is masking the deck so that all the vertical surfaces can be airbrushed navy blue. Use small strips of tape to outline the edges of vertical structures. Push the edges of the tape down with a pencil tip. Larger sections of tape are used to fill in the areas around the outlines of the vertical structures. Lay 2 layers of masking tape on top of one another and cut out sections of tape from the upper layer for masking using a sharp number 11 X-Acto blade. Peel up each small tape section with the tip of a blade and carefully position the tape onto the surface. Hold the free edge of the tape down with a toothpick and then pull the blade away. Use a toothpick to set the final tape position. Use small sections of tape and overlap each one as you progress along the deck surface. Although this is a very tedious and time-consuming process, this masking technique works very well. All the vertical surfaces have been masked around their bases, and now it's time to completely cover the remaining exposed horizontal areas. There's a lot of masking tape covering the surface, and it's important to be sure the tape has good contact with the surface to prevent any paint bleeding or overspray. The vertical surfaces were then airbrushed with 2 light coats of navy blue at low air pressure to reduce the chances of drips and paint dust settling onto the wet surfaces. All the masking tape was then removed, and all the painted surfaces were checked for bleeding and overspray. Small sections of masking tape were used to set the location heights and the thickness of the black boot stripe. Small sections of tape will be removed and the entire surface will be masked. With the masking now complete, the black boot stripe is ready to be airbrushed. The black boot color was achieved by mixing a few drops of flat white to the flat black color. The deck of the aft superstructure platform needed to be airbrushed again with deck blue due to some overspray. The hull surfaces got a coat of clear gloss for the hull number decals. The navy blue and deck blue colors are a semi-gloss because the dark sea blue color is a gloss color. The entire model was then given a coat of Tester's dull coat, so all the painted surfaces have a flat color. This also serves to lighten up the deck blue and navy blue colors. The residue decal setting solution was not cleaned off prior to applying the dull coat. At this point, there were two choices: carefully sand everything off the area and reapply the paint and decal, or hide the stain. A light dusting of rust-colored pastel pencil dust was applied to the blemish to represent mild surface rust. This was applied to both sides of the hull in the same location. The pastel dust was sealed with dull coat and hid the blemish. The forward section of the ship model looks great. The demarcation lines between the colors is also very sharp. The deck blue color could have been a bit lighter to provide a better contrast between the navy blue color and the deck blue color. The aft section of the ship looks great too. Once all the superstructure parts, guns, and fittings are installed, the model will take on a very busy and detailed appearance. The 16-inch gun turrets received several light coats of navy blue color. Note the semi-gloss sheen. The turret sides were masked and the tops were reprimed. The deck blue color was then airbrushed. The masking at the upper edges of the turret were also rechecked just before airbrushing to prevent any paint bleeding down the sides of the turrets. The 16-inch guns were airbrushed navy blue and then masked so that the blast bags could be airbrushed flat black. The guns and the turrets have received a coat of Tester's dull coat. Note how much lighter the navy and deck blue colors appear with a coat of dull coat. The 5-inch turrets were airbrushed navy blue first. The sides and lower front were masked and the deck blue color was applied to the top and the upper angle at the face of each turret. The brass faces of the 5-inch guns were hand-painted with a detail brush. Sometimes the brass was also painted blue, but the paint would wear off very quickly. All the superstructure parts have received the deck blue color first. Taping the parts to lengths of balsa wood makes them easy to handle and airbrush. Here again, small sections of masking tape were used to mask off the deck blue color. Careful masking of the decks will yield sharp demarcation lines between the two colors. The armor tower had its sides painted navy blue first, because the top surface had details that could not be masked over. Both sides of each superstructure part received two coats of navy blue. Low pressure and several coats were used to apply the navy blue color to reduce the chances of paint bleeding. Good masking takes a lot of time on ship models, but the results are well worth the effort. Be prepared to dedicate at least a few hours for masking, and don't try to do it all at once. All the masking for this model occurred over a weekend. The flat black color for the smokestack tops was applied first. The smokestack tops were masked and the remaining surfaces were airbrushed navy blue. All the masking was removed and each superstructure part received a coat of dull coat. Do not forget to also apply the dull coat to the undersides. Note that there is no detectable overspray or bleeding of the navy blue onto the deck blue color. Good masking technique and patience are the key ingredients for good airbrush results. Light coats of airbrush paint applied at low pressure helps ensure even coats. The deck blue color could have been slightly lighter so that the difference in colors would be more apparent. The flat black color for the smokestack tops should have been pure flat black, not a mixture of flat black with some flat white added. All the small parts were attached to sections of balsa wood and airbrushed. Ship models have a lot of small parts, so parts management is important. Use plastic bin organizers to store all the parts. The 20mm box tops were airbrushed deck blue. The boxes were then flipped over onto the masking tape and the sides airbrushed with navy blue. The boxes were flipped again and given a coat of dull coat. Be sure to use new tape when flipping parts, otherwise you could run the risk of having parts fly away due to the air pressure from an airbrush. All the photo etch railings were also attached to masking tape and airbrushed. The railings were carefully peeled off the tape and flipped using the tip of a number 11 X-Acto blade. The hull red color was also applied to the bottom hull areas of the whaleboats. The aircraft catapults are now ready. Gold medal models added a lot of detail to these photo etch assemblies. Always plan your superstructure assemblies so that each layer gets its photo etch railings prior to attaching the levels together. The pre-shaped and pre-painted railings were glued into place on the different superstructure levels. Trying to attach railings to superstructure parts after they are glued together can be difficult, if not impossible. More precise railing positionings can be achieved prior to final assembly. Some railings can be a challenge to attach even prior to assembly. The railings on the right superstructure deck are several different sections of pre-shaped lengths and curves. The railings on the searchlight platform fit perfectly thanks to the template that was made prior to assembly. This template was used to bend and shape the railings. The deck fittings and the 20mm gun boxes were attached with tiny drops of Elmer's white glue. All the deck fittings should be attached first. The forward section is now complete, and it's time to start building up the superstructure. If any Elmer's glue overflows onto the deck, let it dry and then touch the dried glue with the detail brush with some Tester's dull coat. When the dull coat dries, the Elmer's glue will disappear. The superstructure levels were glued into place one layer at a time. The forward levels also had incline ladders added to each layer as the superstructure was built up. Here's a close-up of the aft deck area of the forward superstructure. Note the small caliber gun directors and the searchlights were also added. These ship fittings would be difficult to add once the rigging was completed. The masts were added as well as the smokestacks, and then rigging was added. For the rigging, nylon sewing thread inked black with a Sharpie marker makes excellent rigging. The signal flag rigging was added to the port side first. Note how long the individual strands are. They were inked with a brown-colored Sharpie marker. The individual strands were pulled tight, and a tiny drop of super glue was applied to each location on the yard arm. The same process was repeated on the starboard side. Be sure the locations of the flag rigging lengths on each side match one another. Once all the strands were glued in place, carefully trim each strand with a sharp number 11 X-Acto blade. Note how ship-shaped the strands look. All the rigging is tight and neat. If the plastic mast had been used, the rigging would have bent it. That's why for all the masts on ships, it's best to replace the plastic ones with brass rod. More fittings and gun mounts along with the deck railings have now been attached. Fittings and guns were attached with white glue and the railings were attached with super glue. The chains were added first, then the main deck railings, and then the 20mm guns. To keep the chains tight, apply tiny drops of super glue along their lengths. A drop of Tester's dull coat onto the super glue makes the glue stains disappear. The remaining 40mm quad mounts were added, then the twin 5-inch turrets, and finally the 16-inch turrets. The railing locations got a coat of Tester's dull coat to hide the superglue stains. The main deck railings were attached along the midsection and then the aft area. Then the 20mm guns, the platforms, and the crane were added. Thanks for watching our 4-part series on building and detailing the Trumpeter 1 to 3/50th scale USS North Carolina. I hope that the tips and techniques that have been presented in these 4 parts were helpful to you, and happy scale modeling. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And when you get the chance, visit our website at www.mikeashley.com, where you're going to find dozens of free PDF downloads, including tutorials, picture references, model galleries, projects, and my 5 original scale modeling books. Thanks to Ben Sound and Videvo for the royalty-free music, and happy scale modeling!